Okay, one of the first things we're going to look at in regards to playing as a worship team, as a worship band, is one of the things I see a lot in beginning worship teams is that everybody's playing a lot. Everybody comes in playing their instrument full on instead of learning to listen to one another, learning to kind of pull back and leave space in the music. You know, the space and the rests in music are just as important as the notes. You know, it's those pauses and that space that gives that makes the notes valuable, that makes them mean more. So, you know, let's just take a scenario. You know, a worship leader is used to playing guitar in his church for a couple years. He's leading worship, praying for more musicians to come into his band, and then one glad day, you know, he's used to playing the bass part, and he's also has to kind of keep the rhythm going, and he's got to keep this stuff up here because he's trying to provide as much music as possible. And one glad day, a bass player shows up, and he's got a heart for the Lord. He has some talent. Shows up at practice. All of a sudden, we start adding a bass player. Well, then immediately, as a guitar player, I can start laying off some of those bass notes. In fact, since he's playing those bass notes, I might just go up high here a little bit. Yes, Lord, we lift your name on high. We bless your name. See, I don't have the pressure of having to provide all that bass stuff. And let's say like a few weeks later, a keyboard player shows up. He's got a heart for the Lord. And we're like, man, praise God. And we practice a little bit. All of a sudden, he joins the band. And instead of him playing where I'm playing, he's going to play up a little higher. So all of a sudden, listen to this. He's going to be way up here now. Yeah. And he doesn't have to play any bass notes hardly because we've already got a bass player. A lot of keyboard players, they're used to doing the bass, the rhythm, the chords. But since we have a bass player, Jason can just sit on his left hand. Let's just stop for a minute and talk about what's happening here. See, it's like picture a pizza pie. And when you're all by yourself, you're the whole pie. You're the rhythm, you're everything. You're the chords, you're the melody, you're trying to provide all the feel. But as soon as you start adding other instruments, then I begin to pull back as a guitar player. Keyboard player, instead of having to be real busy, you know, like guys that are used to, in a traditional church setting, many times are used to having to play all the bass, all the accompaniment up here. But to learn how to pull back as you add more players. So as you add more players, each player reduces the amount of activity that they're playing with. So that's one thing that's happening. Another thing that's happening is, picture on your stereo, you have the bass, the mid-range, and the treble. Okay, and a lot of times when a guitar player is playing the chords to a song, a keyboardist many times will end up playing in that same octave range, like in this mid-range area. So see, as the bass player plays down here, the guitars, I'm kind of in the mid-range. And just go ahead and, Jason, play like in the mid-range. Instead of playing there, see, him and I we're like in the same place, and there's nobody up here up high. So watch, I'm gonna go up high. Since he's there, I'm gonna go up high. Here we go. You hear that? You hear how that spreads out the sound a little bit? Now I'm gonna switch with him. I'm gonna go down low in the mid-range, and keyboard player is gonna go up high. You hear that? Try to feel that. What a difference that makes. Okay. And that's good music. That's good music, is when you're paying attention to the separation, the bass, the mids, the treble, and when each player is kind of playing off each other, being sensitive, not trying to be a hog and be like, oh yeah, well I'm gonna play more and I'm gonna be busier than you. but it's like, oh, it's cool. Oh, yeah, it's a nice piano thing. And it may make me just want to go like, while he's playing that. 2, 3, 4. Now, here's what will happen now. Now, let's say a month later, we get a guy, finally, that's got a heart for the Lord, and he can play drums. And even though that, like, it could potentially freak out some of the people in our church, we're going to take this step and add a drummer, which is what we did many years ago. And that was like a big deal, and some people freaked out. But, you know, this guy Carl, he's got a good heart, and he's not going to come in the first day and just blow people away. You know, we're going to kind of like slowly move into this thing. I know some of you are in the midst of a transition. You come from a very traditional church, and you're transitioning from sort of more traditional to more of a contemporary or more modern setting or style. So here's what happens when we add some rhythm. Again, as soon as we add some rhythm, I can back off as a guitar player from having to keep that thing going. So let's just try that simple progression we're doing. 1, 2, 3, 4. See how I cut back my activity as a guitar player? Because Carl's, he's providing that subdivision. Hear that? So as a guitar player, I can just kind of go. And Jason's playing little nice melodies up an octave higher than I am. Don's down there keeping the low end happening. And we're just keeping it nice and light. Pretend that's the verse. And here comes the chorus. Pretend it's the same progression. All we're going to do is get a little stronger now. Now we add a little more activity. Adding some more activity. We're all strumming, playing a little bit harder. Yes, we lift your name. We bless your name, oh Lord. And here comes the verse again. We all pull back a little bit. Pretend that's the verse. We lift your name, we bless your name. You are worthy of our praise. Good. That's good, guys. That's a good example.
So as a bass player, you can do a great job playing bass without playing anything complex. In fact, you're probably going to do a better job if you don't attempt to play something complex. You're going to please the worship leader. You're going to serve the song better in most cases by playing simply. And if you're trying to lock in with the kick drum, 90% of the time, that's all you need to do.